Welcome to episode number 46 of the First Responder Wellness Podcast. My name is Conrad Weaver. I'm so glad you were able to join us today for this show. We are in season number 2 of the First Responder Wellness Podcast. I encourage you to go back and listen to last season's episodes of interviews I've had with amazing first responders and leaders from across the country. And even before that, there was lots of episodes that were on the show before it was called the First Responder Wellness Podcast, so be sure to check them out. Today, I'm privileged to have Jennifer Anderson on the podcast. Jennifer is the CEO and founder of First Responder Coaching, and we're going to learn more about what that means in just a few minutes. But Jen was a first responder wife. Her husband was a law enforcement officer and up in the Northeast, and then he had some challenges with his work, and that led to Jennifer doing what she's doing today. And be sure to listen to the episode because she's going to give a little mini coaching session with me, yours truly. And we're going to talk about some of the things that I'm working on personally. And so be sure to listen to the whole episode, watch the whole episode for that interesting dialogue, that interesting conversation. So tune in just a minute. We're going to get started here with the podcast. Again, Jennifer Anderson from First Responder Coaching. Hey, if you enjoy this podcast, I really encourage you to subscribe and to share it with your network. Share it with your coworkers. Perhaps you're in a public safety agency. Please share it with your coworkers. If you find this information helpful, that would really help me to expand this show. We want to grow this podcast. We want to become the #1 first responder wellness podcast on the planet. So help us do that by sharing and obviously subscribing. If you are on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or some other audio app, please subscribe and then share it with your network. That would mean the world to me. And if you feel so led, leave a 5-star review and leave some comments if you can on the YouTube channel, even on Apple Podcasts. You can do that. I would really appreciate that. Let me know what you like about the podcast, even what you don't like. You know, we want to bring content to you that matters to you. So be sure to let me know. Hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And now here's my conversation with Jennifer Anderson. Well, Jennifer, welcome to the First Responder Wellness Podcast. It's season 2, and we're a couple of episodes in, and so grateful to have you on the program. We actually met in person a few months ago out in Indianapolis at the FDIC conference. So for our listeners and our viewers, tell us who you are and what do you do?
Great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast, Conrad. I really appreciate it. Jen Anderson, I am founder and CEO of First Responder Coaching. And actually, we met our first time in New York City when you were doing a showing there of your phenomenal
Yes, we did.
Yes. So
I remember that. Thanks for jogging my memory. You know,
yes.
I'm this side of 60, so it's sometimes
not a problem. So that was just an incredible, viewing, showing. We had great conversations after that. But yeah, so long story short, my husband was a police officer here in North Central Massachusetts for 15 years, suffered a mental health break that led to a 6-week hospitalization. And for us, there were very few resources. And I saw it happening, right? As a spouse, as a significant other.
And thinking back at those times, what were some of the early signs?
Great question. I had noticed that he was incapable of really focusing on anything beyond like the 24 to 48 hour mark. I would say, hey, do you want to, get dinner with friends this weekend? And then I have to remind him like 3 or 4 times, but it was because his brain was constantly focused on the here and the now and whether or not he was going to make it home at the end of each shift was primarily his focus at the time. So that was a sign. There were a number of other pieces. He had really removed himself in terms of intimacy in our marriage. That was a pretty significant factor. We had some moments where he would share with me a couple of the calls that he'd experienced over the time of the job. And I would see the 1,000-yard stare. He was disassociating significantly. There was a Thanksgiving right before his mental health break. So 2 months before, a month and a half before. And we're sitting at Thanksgiving dinner and he is just not with us. And it happened, many times. And when the family started picking, like, I could pick up on, I knew what was happening, but then you have, our girls, our daughters, like, well, what's wrong with that? Those are some of the pieces. I know there were tons of other, signs and symptoms. Was
that scary for you as a spouse of a first responder? Was that frightening? Did you know what was going on at the time, or did you not have a clue?
No, I had a little bit of an idea. He just became so introverted. The job changed him, right? And I feel like it's impossible for anyone to say that the job does not change them. When you're seeing the worst of the worst day in and day out, it's going to change you. And how you manage those changes, how you communicate about those changes is really the crux of what's going on in these marriages and relationships. So I had done my best to communicate about them. Hey, I noticed that this trigger is really bothering you today. Like, can we, what's going on? But in terms of overarching, like fully understanding that it was going to lead to a mental health break that needed hospitalization because of suicidal ideations, no clue. No clue we were heading that direction. His original diagnosis of PTSD was in 2015. Did a little bit of EMDR work. I'm sure you've had conversations on your podcast about EMDR, and came out and was just like, I'm cured. And I was like, we'll see how that goes. And then sure enough, it was 2 years later when he needed the full hospitalization. So in that regard, I saw signs and challenges, but in terms of actually expecting the worst, I'm grateful that we were able to get him the support he needed before he, completed suicide. But it was a rough go there. So
I think this kind of conversation is so important to have for those people who are spouses of first responders, whether you're the wife or the husband, of a first responder. I think hearing it from someone like you firsthand, I think is important. What are some of those early steps that you did to maybe even convince him to get help?
It was not easy. It was not easy. So what happened in December, 150 guys that he worked with in our little, North Central Massachusetts city, December 13th, he would have died for any one of them, right? December 14th, 15th, and 16th-ish, he was on the couch crying, sobbing. And that's when I was like, whoa, okay, this is not good. There's something going on here. So we had contacted our primary, and she had given him a letter to be able to stay home for, leave for a little bit. Had that filed with the department, and he had time. So it was okay. And then I was nervous leaving him home. Like, that's when I started getting nervous about leaving him home by himself. I was grateful we did not have any weapons in the house, but we know when people get to that desperation point. And so I had contacted our primary and said, we need to get him seen now. We had contacted the place that he had gone to in 2015, On-Site Academy. I'm not sure if you've heard of it here in Massachusetts. Phenomenal organization. And they had a month wait list.
Wow.
So, all right, well, what are we going to do in the next month? So we found a partial program locally that was civilian based. So when we talk about resources for our first responder, like, why aren't there resources at this stage? The partial program put him on 7 different medications in day 1.
Wow. 7. Holy cow.
By day 3, they were finally working in his system, and that was the break. He could not contract for safety. I remember walking into the partial program, I received a phone call saying he needed to be fully hospitalized. And he was just sitting in the corner of a room rocking, like he zeroed out. That's future title of my book, is zeroed out, because his executive functioning skills, everything just poof. We talk about how TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, affect parts of the brain and where the injury occurs. He experienced an emotional TBI that zeroed him out. And so we got him into McLean Hospital, again, here in Massachusetts. It is the top ranked mental health institute in the entire country. It's a phenomenal resource. He spent a month in the trauma ward and then, 2 weeks in the trauma ward and then 2 weeks in a program called LEADER, Law Enforcement Active Duty Emergency Response. They were great in terms of coping skills and strategies, but he really needed to process the trauma. And that's what he did back at onsite. So he had been at onsite for many, many weeks. He would come home for a month, go for a week, come home for a month, go for a week. And that was really incredibly helpful for his healing and his process. But all that to say, why did we have to wait?
Yeah.
Why, like all of a sudden it's like, okay, he's suicidal. Oh, wow. Now the red flags go up. Like he can't, again, contract for state. He can't function. He's crying for 3 days. Like, why did we have to wait? And that's the mission of what I do now. I work using coaching to help support this community in a proactive way. If we are creating conversations, creating space for difficult conversations, that's how we prevent. That's how we are proactive in our approaches to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. And my idealistic views of the world is that, we end first responder suicide. I know that's idealistic, but that's definitely what we're working toward.
Well, I want to dive deeper into what you do now as first responder coaching, but I want to go back so how did your marriage survive?
Thank you for asking. It was a lot of work, so much work, because not only did I need to allow him to put himself back together, I needed to figure out how to be the wife, the mom, the woman that I needed to be to help us through this period. And it was an incredible experience through not only counseling, I absolutely received, help and support from a counselor. It took a little while because she was not culturally competent. So she didn't really understand what it was that we had been going through. And while it was good to talk about, the past and remember who Kevin was and why we had fallen in love and what our marriage looked like, I also needed to focus on me and focus on our girls. And again, that foundation. And that's where I found coaching to be so incredibly helpful. Coaching is about the here and the now and the future. So we rallied, we really were able to pull resources together, have difficult conversations. I focused on me, he focused on him, we focused on the girls. And we pulled through for 6.5 years. To be totally transparent, we are in the process of separation. But one of the things that I'm incredibly proud of is the environment that we were able to create in our home that allowed Kevin to grow into a new person, into a person that he's proud of outside of the job. And through these last 6.5 years, I feel like we have been an incredible success story of healing and moving beyond those critical moments. And now we've identified the fact that we are both very different and we're staying true to our own coaching. He is a certified coach through FRC as well, and identifying where we are now and where we want our futures to be and to look like. And we will always continue to do life together. I'm very, very honored and proud, and he is still my best friend, and we will continue to maintain that relationship. But we've identified the fact that he has changed significantly and I have changed significantly, and it's not where we want to see our futures go. We both deserve different and a little bit better. So.
Well, thank you for being so vulnerable with that story. I really appreciate it. What did you learn about yourself during this time?
So much. I was a teacher, high school English teacher for 17 years. And I never anticipated, never thought, never imagined that I would be in a situation as, founder, CEO, who does that? So in terms of me and my growth, it's just been incredible. I have transitioned out and resigned from teaching and in this full role of building a business that I have no idea what I'm doing. I just pull in amazing human beings who know more than me to support me as we're going, as we're building, but also in my own confidence and my own ability to be proud of myself. You know, they say all the time, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. Mm-hmm. We hear it. We hear all of those sayings, right? Mm-hmm. Self-care is most important. You know, put your mask on, you know, you put your oxygen mask on before you help others, right? Those are all, you know, phrases that we hear every single day. But until you're mindful of them, until you stop and take a few moments to say, I need to take this time. I need to prioritize. As silly as it sounds, I get my nails done every 3 weeks. That's my me time.
It's part of that self-care, right?
That is my self-care. That's one of a couple of ways that I prioritize myself.
And you have to be intentional about that, right?
Very much so. Very much so. That's my sacred time. 2 hours every 3 weeks is sacred. You don't mess with my Maria time. And that's just something that I chose to do. But there are lots of ways to stop and, you know, prioritize and really see what's most important, because as much as we like to think that we're, you know, pouring into our relationships, pouring into being the roles that we are, right? When people ask, oh, you know, hi, you're meeting someone for the first time, like, you know, oh, what do you do? I'm a mom, right? I'm a CEO, or I'm a police officer. I'm a corrections officer. Like, you just immediately go to the roles, but that doesn't tell the person who you are. Right. It's a quality that exists within you, your career. And how do we separate out the identity of who we are as individuals with that is incredibly important.
I think that's where we kind of address this in the film, you know, briefly, where if you take you put your badge down, you take your uniform off, you'll lose that identity. And that's such a dangerous thing to do.
Yes. One of the things that often comes up during coaching sessions is that satisfaction in all areas of your life. So I do an activity called the Wheel of Life that is just so profound. You know, I ask people to identify 8 areas of their life that they value the most. And absolutely, career is usually, you know, one of the first ones they turn to, you know, leadership, but obviously family and recreation and sport and all the other things that are involved in the whole person. And then when we start looking at the levels of satisfaction in each of those different areas, oftentimes, you know, career isn't the greatest, you know, so oftentimes career isn't obvious, you know, the top thing on there in terms of the level of satisfaction they have. Family is typically the highest. Well, if you value family and family is incredibly important to you and you have a higher level of satisfaction in your family life, then in what ways can we improve these other areas to help support that area, right? But you say you don't have recreation time. You say you don't have time for hobbies. Okay, but if that's important to you, what can we do in the other areas to help you improve levels of satisfaction in that area? So we really take a look at the whole person in helping people identify aspects outside of the identity of the career.
Mm-hmm. So what inspired you to go into coaching? What was that path like for you?
Oh my goodness. So it was January of 2018, and we were he was hospitalized. I was juggling the girls. It was a crazy, crazy hot mess time for me. And a former student of mine actually had reached out to me, and she was doing work with Bob Proctor in his Thinking into Results program, which was one of the most life-changing coaching programs I ever experienced. And so in that 12 weeks, I learned so much. It was so, thinking back, I set a goal to run a 5K. That was like my goal during this like Thinking into Results program. I wanted to run a 5K. I'm not a huge fan of running. I fully admit it's not one of my favorite pastimes.
Me too.
Amen, right? Your bike is much more. But I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to do this. Like, I need to do this for me. And I did. I ran a 5K, which again might sound trivial or silly for others, but it was so incredibly impactful for me. that I saw what coaching could do. And so through the experience of being coached, I was incredibly moved when a member of our church at the time reached out to me, and he was putting together a certification course for coaches. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. He was like, yeah, just go to my house on like a Tuesday night. I'm like, oh, okay. And 9 months later, he trained me using a number of different approaches: the International Coaching Federation approach, the Erickson model approach, and the Assemblies of God approach in coaching. And so I received my official 9-month certification in 2019. And then I just sat on it for a little while because I wasn't, was focused on the school and focused on rebuilding, the marriage.
You were still teaching at the time?
Yep. Totally still teaching at the time, juggling a lot of hats, but feeling a really strong pull to work in the coaching field. I started coaching some law enforcement spouses in the area here in North Central Massachusetts, one of whom owns a public relations firm. And she was like, Jen, this is incredible work you're doing. And I'm like, I'm just asking some questions. And, she's like, no, it's an incredible field. Like, you need to get this out there. So I partnered with her for a little bit. And through that work, we got connected to the National Police Wives Association. Shout out to Rendy and Kelly. They are a phenomenal duo that run that organization. And this was, I officially launched Blue Line Coaching with that PR woman I was coaching in February of 21. So it was, early summer of 21. The National Police Wives Association had been working with the Capitol Police Spouses. And the Capitol Police Spouses in 21 needed some significant support. Sure. And so I had done some coaching with the Capitol Police Spouses, and a number of them were very excited and enthusiastic about learning how to coach. So I contacted the gentleman who had trained me, and I said, hey, can we put together, a certification course, moving forward? And when we talk about like the spectrum of certifications, there are some courses out there you can take, $200 for, 5-10 hours and on your own, and you just sit and, listen. And on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, which is tens of thousands and years and hundreds of hours of coaching to get a really solid certification under your belt. And so when I went back to him, I was expecting like a, $200 for, 3, 4, or 5 hours. And he's like, no. Like if we're doing this, we're doing it right. So we created our full 12-week coach certification course. My Capitol Police Spouses were a couple of the first to take it. And they were doing some incredible work, again, in Capitol area, and in Frederick, Maryland. In the fall of 21, a fire captain had been killed in the line of duty. And the fire chief reached out to one of our Capitol spouses and said, hey, I know you're supporting the blue. Can you come support the red? And at that point, no brainer, of course. So we quickly transitioned into first responder coaching. And at that point, it was just an incredible, almost 3-year run here. We've trained over 75 coaches in 23 states and Canada. And it has just been an incredible growth, incredible journey, bringing coaching resources to our entire community of first responders. And we still have a lot of work to do. We have lots of work to do. And I know you and I share that mission as well.
For sure. Yeah. So what's the difference between a coach and a therapist or a counselor?
Great question. Coaches are, again, here in the now. Oftentimes counselors, therapists, and you go to them because they've experienced education, right? They've, have letters at the end of their name because they have, the significant amount of education behind them. So we can turn to them for specific information about, increasing or improving sleep habits. We'll go to sleep habits. I know our first responder community struggles with sleep significantly, right? So they can talk about, what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked, those pieces, and give you, here's 10 ways to improve your sleep habits. We as coaches work incredibly well with counselors because then you come to the coach and say, okay, what, the coach will ask, which one of the 10 do you want to do tonight? Which one of the 10 do you want to work on? Like, which one's going to work best for you? Because you are the expert in your life. And so the coach does not give advice. A coach does not counsel. We only listen. Live by this 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we are listening actively. We train our coaches to listen, which sounds a little silly, but the verbal, the nonverbal, what's not being said, all of the above. And then 20% of the time we're asking powerful questions. So which one of those 10 that you want to work on tonight and tomorrow and the day after, right? What's going to prevent you from doing that one thing? What are some of the challenges that might present itself, in the morning? Or let's talk about the outcomes. That one didn't work for you. Okay. Well, 72 hours later, well, what would you like to try? What's the next one you'd like to try? And the practical application of the things that we already know. Like, we already know that we're supposed to put our phones down 30 minutes before bed.
Right.
How many of us are doing
How
that?
hard is
right?
that, right?
It's the practical application. We all know that we should be eating better or going to the gym or doing walking. Everyone's like, just walk. You just got to walk. Well, okay. Like, what's holding you, why aren't we doing those things? And as experts in our own lives, it's the coach's responsibility to help pull that out and then hold you accountable for it.
Do you think sometimes the habits we develop over our years prevent us from doing some of those things that we know we're supposed to do? And then How do you break through those habits?
We break through those habits by asking questions about, what happens if you don't do this? Right? So going back to those sleep habits, again, I know a lot of our first responders struggle with that. If you choose not to, implement one of these sleep habits to improve your sleep, what will happen? Well, I'll stay in the same spot. I will fall asleep at the wheel. I will, be tired when I get home, won't be able to spend time with my kids. Like, those are all the things that are happening now, right? And you don't want these to happen. If you want to improve the level of satisfaction, then this is on you. And if you want to improve the relationship you have with your kids, because you're not going to, be sleepy right when you get home. If you want to prevent a potential car accident because you're not falling asleep behind the wheel, right? So, but that has to come from the individual, right? We have to be holding ourselves accountable. And it's the coach's job to ask the questions necessary to get that mind paradigm shift to happen. So it's incredible work. It really is.
So your work is really helping the first responder have the outcomes that they dreamed they could have. Just like an athlete, if you have a Tiger Woods who wants to win the Masters, he had a coach that guided him to help him accomplish those things to get that green jacket.
Yeah. So oftentimes we equate, absolutely. In one of my slides, I've got Bill Belichick, right? What is a coach? And I have Bill Belichick's face right there.
Boo. Sorry.
Hey, New England here, right? It always gets a good chuckle out of the crowd. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, New England, right? Diehard Pats fans. And so when we think about that kind of relationship, we kind of imagine someone that's over you, you need to do this and you need to do that. And they're giving you motivation. There's a lot of overlap. Again, a coach knows more than the person who's being coached in that regard. So there's a little bit more of the mentoring. It's a little bit more of a mentoring, I think would be a great way of describing that kind of a relationship. So that's a little bit different, right? If you're looking to someone for advice, if you're looking for someone for guidance, that's a different kind of relationship than coaching, because coaches, we don't do that. But we do motivate, we celebrate, right? We celebrate the small wins. It's so incredibly important to acknowledge the small wins, right? Not just the big ones, because that gives us the motivation to continue to want to do more things, right? And so there is some overlap for sure when it comes to that kind of a relationship. We absolutely support them in ways that, again, help you to change your own thinking. And you're right, absolutely, improve performance.
Yeah. What are some perhaps anecdote that you have of someone that you guys guided, your team guided, that helped them kind of win?
Oh my goodness. I love this story. I will share this story for the rest of my life. I don't know if he even knows that I share this story. So we don't use his name.
Sure.
But I was at a conference. And again, this isn't even, it's just a mile, just a little snippet here. But I was at a conference in Connecticut. And, I got the booth set up. I got the whole, whatever. And this gentleman walks by and he's, does one of those and, what is this thing? And, not a lot of people understand, truly what coaching is. So not only am I training and teaching what coaching is, but then I'm teaching and training people what FRC does. And so he walked by once or twice and finally I engaged him, hi, sir, how you doing? What do you know about coaching? And, he's like, oh, not much and blah, blah, blah. So we started conference. I don't need help. I'm good. There are so many other people who could use your service. There's so many other people that are worse off than me. I'm good. And I was like, thank you so much for stopping by and even just, saying hello to me, whatever. A couple hours later, he's scooting by again and, hey, how's it going? And, and just struck up another conversation. What are some of the things that you are seeing on the job, and he starts talking about some of the triggers that he's experienced, some of the, things that he's gone through as a fire paramedic and the things that he's seen, family members that he's had to support, some really tragic things. And so through some conversation, well, what is it that you do for you? What do you enjoy doing for yourself? And he says, I really enjoy blacksmithing.
Wow.
What?
That's unique.
Like, what a cool hobby, right? Like totally, like that's such a cool hobby. Like why, how often do you do it? Oh, well, not as much as, well, why not? What's preventing you from doing that? And asking some of those coaching questions. And, so a little bit later, the next day, I think it was like a two-day conference. The next day he comes around and we're chatting it up and he's like, you know what? I think I do need some more support and I do need to do my blacksmithing more. And I was like, I am so proud of you. Like, good for you. Like, so through some conversation, who do you have as resources in your life that you can tap into? Oh, well, I've got a really great buddy who's a chaplain. Awesome. Oh my gosh. What, when can you call him? Like, right? Like when are you going to reach out to him? Like, oh yeah, I'll call him tonight when I get home and blah, 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 blah. It was just an incredible moment for this gentleman to realize that no matter where you are in the PTS spectrum of life, that we all deserve to have supports in our lives and we all deserve to have outlets and resources and use them and be proud of them. So sure enough, end of the conference comes and I start to pack up and this gentleman walks over to me again and he's like, I wanted to stop by one more time and say thank you because I hadn't considered the fact that my story, I could use some extra support. I like to think that I'm good. I like to think that I'm okay. And I know that I will be, but that doesn't negate the fact that like, I could use some support. I could use an outlet. I definitely could use, the opportunity to talk to someone. I was like, this is awesome. Like, I'm like just offhand, here and there conversations. And as he begins to walk away, he turns and he pulls out of his pocket and he says, I made this for you. It is a hand blacksmithed bottle opener. And again, a total maybe half-hour conversation with this gentleman. But since then, he has texted me every couple weeks, letting me know how things are going with him, how much his life has changed by accessing the resources that he knew he had. He just hadn't reached out to, by continuing to pursue his blacksmithing, by continuing to improve and share. He's now doing little mini classes with his son and some of his son's friends come over and do some blacksmithing together. So he is by far one of my favorite stories.
Wow. That's very cool.
Thank
So who is coaching for?
Yes. Literally anyone. I oftentimes, you get the, how you doing? We have peer support members who are doing a phenomenal job. I think peer support is an incredible opportunity for people to check in with each other. How you doing? I'm good. I'm fine. That's even a great place to start. Okay, well, if you're good now, if you're feeling like you're in a good place right now, let's have a conversation around what supports you have in place now. What's making you feel like you're good right now? Because we all know that it's not if, it's when we experience trauma. There are going to be times that you're not so good. And so if you're good now, it's a great time to start coaching. If you're not good now, it's a great time to start coaching. If you're just entering the career, it's a great time to start coaching. So you know that this resource exists, you've experienced it, and you're ready to go and use it throughout your career. If you're transitioning out of a career, right? What are you going to do? How do you take that uniform off? Coaching is a great opportunity. Transitions. When it comes to shift changes, I was blown away. I've heard some departments bid every quarter. Every quarter they're bidding for new shifts.
Wow.
How do you plan life?
Yeah.
How do you do anything if every 3 months you're switching shifts? You know, so transitions, new babies, that's a lot of stress. That's a lot of stress. Anytime, to answer your question, Conrad, any point, coaching can be beneficial.
So in your work there, you now coach coaches or teach coaching to others who are helping the first responders, right?
Yes. So we offer a number of different opportunities, but yes, we now train coaches and encourage them to coach people locally. We know that this first responder community is very stubborn. It's very you
That's
gotta
being
know.
kind.
Very kind. Thank you. I was like trying to choose a good word. Pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But they connect to who they know. They trust who they know.
Sure.
And so I can come in and say, hey, you know, this is a great thing. Like, you know, because again, newfangled, right? Everyone looks at the shiny new, you know, truck and they're like, ooh, look at the new truck. But it's like, oh, a mental health resource, you know, it's just obviously a challenge sometimes to have those conversations. But if you know someone, right, boots on ground, that you trust and that you have had conversations with, that's an incredible way to bring coaching in a non-threatening, like, you know, oh, this is punitive, or it's not in any of those realms. We actually have one of the coolest things I think that we use as a tool within FRC coaching is something called a stress and wellbeing assessment. Basically, you know, it was like 6 months out from my husband's hospitalization, and he was home. So we were going through stuff. I was doing the running piece and things were looking really good. And then I started having PVCs, ventricular contortions. My heart was doing some funky stuff. 38 years old. Like, why am I having heart palpitation? Like, what's this? So I go to the cardiologist and sitting with little, you know, I love it. It was just a really cool, you know, environment. And I get in to talk to the cardiologist. Everything looks great. Structurally, stress test, everything looks fine. What's your level of stress in your life? Well, maintaining a career, husband is hospitalized, don't know how we're going to pay our bills next month. Right. And she was like, yeah, that's what's happening. I'm like, why is the levels of stress in my life affecting and influencing me at this point in this way? Like, I don't understand. So I was looking for a way to quantify stress. How do we put a number? How do we designate high levels of stress in my life that make it different, or, you know, outcomes are different in other people's lives and stresses that they're experiencing? Why? And so I found this stress and wellbeing assessment. This is offered by an organization called HeartMath, phenomenal organization. Basically, it is a 75-question multiple choice assessment, right? It takes like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to complete. And with this reading, right, with the outcome, with the results of this, it will actually break down and quantify 8 different levels of stressors in your life. So 8 different areas of stress in your life: relationship stress, career stress, physical stress, right? It will quantify that for you. The other very cool part of this stress and wellbeing assessment is it will also quantify 4 areas of well-being. including emotional vitality, resilience. How do we quantify resilience? What does that look like? This is the only assessment I've been able to find that helps to quantify that information for us. So we can use that as a template for our coaching sessions. Hey, noticing your relationship stress is really high. Your ability to adapt is a little bit low. Let's have some conversations through coaching in the next month, 2 months, 3 months that will help alleviate some of your relationship stress and help improve your adaptability in order to become more satisfied across the board. Does that?
Yeah. Wow. So this is available through, obviously through your organization, but generally, is it available publicly, the Heart Math?
Yeah, you can take your free assessment. Absolutely. On the Heart Math website, look for the stress and wellbeing assessment. But it's a resource that I feel is so invaluable, tied to a coaching session. We offer it for all of our department organization packages to all of our individuals. That's the crux of a lot of our initial conversations in coaching, because I think it's pivotal to have that understanding. Why does stress affect some more than others, right? Why did my husband after 15 years no longer be able to do the job? Like why? What was that? Right? We can talk about ACEs. I'm sure you've heard about ACEs, and we can talk about childhood traumas, and we can talk about all those factors. But why him at this time? And what can we do to prevent that from happening to others? Maybe by looking at our levels of stress and assessing them and having conversations about them.
So I want to do a little bit something different here, but I want to do a little role playing. So I'm your client, you're coaching me, and I'm really struggling. And this is true. I'm really struggling with maintaining a solid morning routine that gets me going in the morning. What should I do?
I love it. So, all right, Conrad, tell me a little bit about what your morning routine looks like right now.
So I usually wake up around 6. My wife gets up at 5. She's a school administrator and now a principal. So she's, really working on herself and getting her morning going. So she gets up at 5. I get up at 6, and I get up, I go downstairs, take care of the dog, make some breakfast. I have a quiet time, devotional time, which is important to me. And then I make some breakfast and watch the news, or I don't watch the news, but I read the news on my iPad. Then I typically, once my wife is gone, then I go work out and, slowly get my day started. But I just don't feel like it's being effective. I feel like I'm slacking off. Maybe it's because my wife gets up an hour earlier. But I just feel like it's okay, but it's not really where I want to be, if that makes sense.
Yes. So then that leads me to the next question. Where do you want to be? Because that does sound like an incredible process in the morning that you're doing.
Yeah, I want to be in a place where when I'm ready to, come here into my studio, do my work, that I'm really focused. And sometimes I have a problem with focus.
Okay.
And so I'm distracted by social media, I'm distracted by, the weather, the dog, whatever's going on, and I really want to be able to be, getting into my studio here and really work and stay focused. And sometimes I have a hard time with doing that.
Okay. So just for clarification, you feel like your morning routine in some way should help you focus, should help you transition into the work at hand and be able to get down to the focus and the flow that you need in order to be more productive at work. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what has worked for you in the past to get to that level of focus and I don't know if I use the word flow, right? I don't know if you understand the concept of flow, but right, when it gets you into that mindset that you're like really engaged and really focused, what's something that's helped you in the past?
Yeah, I know the answer to this. What's helped me in the past is so I read this book called The 5 a.m. Club, and I really got into, okay, maybe I need to get up at 5 a.m. and just start taking, and that book kind of divides that first hour into 3 segments where it's input with some kind of reading, it's some kind of exercise, it's some kind of a meditation thing. And I think that when I did that for a brief period of time, I seemed to work a little better, but I kind of fell off the wagon, so to speak. and now I kind of coached my wife into doing that, and she's killing it and loving it.
Go figure.
I know. And because she was like doing the same thing I just asked you, she said, she's in this new role, a principal at a middle school, big stressful job, and so I said, why don't you get up at 5 and do this, this, and this? And she was like, like the other day, she was like, I'm loving this. It's working. It's really working for me. Oh, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still struggling. I'm laying in bed while you're doing your thing.
That's awesome. I love it. So again, perfect example. You know what you need to do, right? So what's holding you back from doing it? What got you out of that routine?
Probably laziness, to be honest.
Right.
Yeah. Probably maybe going to bed too late, and that 5 a.m. wake up is hard,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So decisions that you're making the night before are influencing and affecting your ability to make the good decisions that you want to make in the mornings, which then filters into your day at work and focusing and being able to do that.
Yep.
And be present, mindful there.
Yep.
Okay. So this again, just going kind of back from the things that we're sharing here. What's something you could do, the night before to help prep you, to help you have a better morning and be more prepared to get up and do what you want to do, what you want to do?
Yeah. Probably turn off the TV and stop watching those silly YouTube videos of people, like the fail army.
Yes, I love that.
I know, I do too. It's hilarious. But I tend to just, click through one after another, and it's like, okay, before I know it, it's like 10 o'clock. It's like, okay,
That's awesome. Well, how much do you feel like your body, like how many hours, and this is something that I know I, have had to work through, and how many hours of sleep do you feel like your body needs? So 10 o'clock is not an appropriate time. You feel like you're not prepped for that morning. How many hours do you feel like your body really needs of sleep to be able to make sure you're ready to go?
I really function best when it's 7 to 8 hours. Really leaning toward the 8 side than the 7. So
yeah. So then let's bump up that. What's preventing you from bumping that back up and making sure that you get that number of hours of sleep? So when your alarm goes off, you're ready.
Just my lazy rear end on the couch watching TV.
Okay. Now my question is, if we jump back into this, right? If you set the alarm to go off at 9 and say, nope, this is my cutoff time, I need to be in bed. You're a little bit more strict with your evening routines. You're able to get up a little bit earlier, do the things, again, the devotional pieces, right? That are important to you. You get to the office, you get to the work that you want to do. You're starting to focus. What benefits will you receive from doing that?
I'll probably make more money because I'm working harder, right?
Okay. Yes. So in what ways is that going to improve your life?
Well, I'll be able to, really focus in on the business side of things and really be able to, think creatively, for the film, for the podcast, for all the things I'm doing, for new things that are coming up. I'll be able to be more focused on that and more diligent to continue that work to succeed. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
So here's where the shift comes. Are you ready? One more question.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
What happens if you don't make the changes?
Yeah. Then it'll just continue to slowly grind down to where I'm just not, I'm not ending up where I want to go. I don't have the results I want.
Yeah. And how will that affect other areas of your life?
Oh, it'll affect everything. It'll affect my finances. It'll affect my relationship with my wife, my kids, my grandkids. It'll affect my health probably. So yeah.
Because you're not honoring your body and your sleep patterns.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So what's going to prevent you from doing that tonight as you wind down for the evening?
I'm going to turn off that TV. I might not even turn it on tonight. In fact, that's what I've been thinking about. In fact, last night I was laying in bed thinking about that. I should just probably not turn on the TV and just read something beneficial. I read anyway. I mean, I usually lay in bed for the, 30 minutes before I fall asleep and I read a book. Reading an amazing book right now.
Oh, what's that?
It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Ooh.
It's really, really good.
I'll have to look into it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's a story about 11 Madison Park, the restaurant.
Okay.
That's like a 4-star restaurant, and how they succeeded to getting those 4 stars and with unreasonable hospitality. It's really, really good. Yeah.
That's awesome. I will have to look it up. So you understand that the implications of you not making certain changes are going to continue to affect the levels of satisfaction in all areas of your life, as you just stated, right? And so I asked you, what are those barriers, right? Not turning on the TV, right? The barriers are going to be my own, nope, I got to read the book, right? I got to do what I need to do to make sure that I get enough sleep so that when the alarm goes off at 5 a.m., I am prepped and primed and ready to go. Mm-hmm. In what ways do you think you have resources or people in your life that could help support you in this movement, in this change?
Yeah, I think I have some people in my life that are good friends that can hold me accountable. And I can just tell them, look, I'm going to be doing this, check up on me. Send me a text. If you're up at 5, send me a text. Are you up?
Yes.
That kind
absolutely.
of thing. So, yeah. So for all those of you watching and listening, please don't all text me. If you have my phone number, my phone's going to blow up tomorrow morning.
That's awesome. Oh, that's
well, I love it. I love that process. So how can someone out there, how can they get a coach? How can they become a coach?
Absolutely. Not only can they access us through the website, firstrespondercoaching.org, they can certainly text me 978-616-7989. Absolutely reach out in any way, shape, form. We're on all social media platforms. I'm sure you can find us for sure out there. And just, don't hesitate. That's the thing. I think we overthink sometimes, right? We do our best to make sure it is 100% affordable. It really is. And there's no reason for people to hesitate. Just make the call, reach out, don't hesitate, because you deserve it. Right. Looking at, coaching that hour or even 45 minutes a week is your time, right? That's the time that you get to think about the things that you are going through and that you are experiencing, and then taking steps toward improving your life. That's really what it's about.
Awesome. So final question. What's one thing a first responder can do today to get their life moving in the direction that they want to go?
The obvious answer: contact first responder coaching. Great question. But just evaluate. Take 5 seconds to stop and breathe and think about, the level of satisfaction that you have in your life. Where am I? Just taking a few seconds to evaluate where you are, because I don't think we don't honor that time. We don't stop. We're just a go. And next thing you know, you blink and it's, 10 years, and you blink again and it's 15 years. And it's just, we don't honor ourselves by taking a few minutes here and there to just stop and think, how am I? That's really what needs to happen. So I think once people take that moment, then call a coach. Then contact us and we'll help you move in that direction, whatever it may be.
Well, that is great advice, Jennifer. Thank you so much for being on the program today. Thanks you for what you're doing for first responders and for the mini coaching session we had today. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Anytime, Conrad. I'm looking forward to hearing about how this 5 a.m. thing works out for you, because that's something that I could probably use some work on too. So you can be my inspiration.
Great. Well, we'll leave it right there.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer, for taking time to give me a little coaching session. I really appreciate. You'll probably send me the invoice, right? No, I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to be working on the things that we talked about. So stay tuned for future podcast episodes where I bring you updates on how I'm doing with these things that we talked about today. Hey, if you enjoy this podcast and you think others would too, first of all, please subscribe, whether you're on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or some other channel. Please subscribe and then share it with your network. Share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, anyone who you think would benefit from this this interview and these conversations. I really do appreciate it. We want to grow this show and to be able to reach more first responders from all over the world. We have many countries, many first responders listening and watching from all over the world. So we're so grateful for that. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And stay tuned for next week for another amazing conversation with a first responder leader right here on the First Responder Wellness Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Now go out there, take care of yourself and those around you, and do something great in the world.